Good evening, good morning, everyone. We have the opportunity now to talk to DIANA BUTTU, a Canadian Palestinian lawyer with significant experience in the conflict between Israel and Palestine. Diane, thank you very much for accepting this invitation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Diane, before we go into the events that are happening right now, you had been part of dialogues of peace agreement and discussions of the formation of the two states. And we just wanted to know if you could tell us a little bit more. What has been the evolution of the historical events that had led to where we are today? And why an agreement has not been reached?
Oh, that's a really good question, and I can sum it up very quickly. Because Israel doesn't want an agreement, and because the world has never forced Israel to push for an agreement. What do I mean by this? This is a one-way occupation. This isn't a two-way occupation. Israel is occupying the Palestinians. And at any moment, Israel can take the decision to end the occupation. It's just a decision. That's all it requires. It requires them taking the decision, deciding that Palestinians need to live freely, and it requires them to get their settlers out. It's just that simple. But instead, Israel has spent all of these years trying to go around it, trying to keep the land and keep the settlers and keep a boot on our neck. And the world has allowed this to happen. So, if anything, this is a failure on the part of the international community to do what is necessary to make sure that Israel abides by the law. And that's why this is so tragic, so tragic.
There has been proposals throughout the years for a two-state organization. Is that inside? Is that even possible at this point?
No, not at all. Right now, the number one thing that needs to happen is Israel needs to stop the bombing campaign. Then, after stopping the bombing campaign, the Gaza Strip must be allowed to be free. And whether that's in two states or one state, I don't care. But the main thing now is Palestinians are owed their rights. And we can't keep kicking this down for yet another year. Look, I've been involved for many, many years. And the problem for me as a Palestinian was that each and every U.S. administration made promises to us, and then each and every U.S. administration kicked the can, as we would say in English, to the next president. So when I started working, it was President Clinton, and he then kicked the can to President Bush. President Bush held on to this, he's president for 8 years, then kicked the can to President Obama. Obama was president for 8 years, he kicked the can to Trump. Trump was president for 4 years, he kicked the can to Biden. And so nobody has ever looked at this and said, what does it mean for Palestinians to be living under 56 years of military occupation? And I can explain it to you so that your viewers, your listeners can understand. The occupation is violent. To maintain the occupation, it can only be done through violence. So we as Palestinians, we don't live freely. We live behind walls, behind checkpoints. In order to be able to move from one place to another, we need Israeli permission. In order to be able to do the simplest things like build a house, we need Israeli permission. But then it's not just a question of movement. They then try to crush anybody who tries to raise their head a little bit. So if you're a Palestinian who believes in nonviolence, they'll imprison you, as we've seen with other people. If you're a Palestinian who believes in the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement, they also try to get rid of you. Every aspect of our lives is controlled by Israel. So we wake up in the morning to Israeli violence. We go to bed with Israeli violence. And we've been doing this for 56 years. There hasn't been one generation of Palestinians who have lived with any level of freedom. So when we talk about two-state or one-state, at this time it's all fantasy. It's all fantasy. And instead what we need to focus on is stopping Israel, because it's committing genocide. It's committing genocide. What's the difference between Hamas and Palestinians? Hamas is a political party. We have many political parties. We have actually 26 political parties. The main ones, the three main ones, or four main ones. There are four main ones, and Hamas is one of the main ones. It's not the biggest, but it's one of the four main ones of 26. And in 2006, we had our general elections, and people voted for Hamas. Now, I want to put this in context. In 2006, President Bush was the president, and I was in the room when President Bush said, yes, we're going to allow Hamas to run for our elections, and we believe that people will deal with them at the ballot box. And so it's a political movement. It's a political party. Not all Palestinians support Hamas, and that's it. So the problem is that people have, looking at the media, in the eyes of the media, history began on October 7th. It didn't begin before that, and that's the problem. This is the height of dehumanization. To somehow say that we as Palestinians have to endure 56 years of what Israel dealt with one day is the height of dehumanization. It really is. It's above and beyond. And so the media, because we've been so dehumanized, they begin history on October 7th. And because they begin history on October 7th, it's as though somehow we are deserving of what's being done to us. And again, I want to make very clear what's being done. It's genocide. And I'll explain why it's genocide. In the Gaza Strip is a very tiny, tiny little space. I can't compare it to any city in Colombia because I have yet to be to your beautiful country. But I know many Colombian friends. But it's a small place. It's 40 kilometers long and maybe 18 kilometers wide at its widest point. It has 2.2 million people living in it. 80% of them are refugees because they come from cities that Israel took over. And 50% of them are children. It's the most densely populated place on earth. And what Israel has done over the course of the past 12 days is it has cut off food supplies. It's cut off water supplies. It's cut off medical supplies. It's cut off fuel, and it's cut off electricity. There is no place that Palestinians can get any of those things other than Israel because they live under military occupation. In addition, Israel's dropped more bombs on this tiny little space in 6 days than were dropped by the United States and Afghanistan in 1 year. Okay. Israel's killed more children, 1,500, in 12 days. Then that's 3 times the number that have been killed in the Ukraine war. Okay. And the Ukraine war has lasted for a year and 9 months. It just shows you the magnitude of what is being done to us. And it's illegal and it's immoral. And it has to stop. And I beg for people of good conscience around the world to make it stop. Is it starting to change around the world? It was never with Israel around the world. The only people who've been with Israel around the world are the Western European countries, Canada, and the United States, and Australia. Okay, the rest of the world, the rest of the world has not. been. And you can step in, and you know better than I do. And I hate this idea that it's the United States represents the world. They don't. Or that Western Europe represents the world. They don't. They don't represent anything other than themselves. And the problem, even with the bombing of the hospital, there was also, by the way, there was a bombing of a school the same day, a UN school. And the issue is that now they're starting to call for a ceasefire, but it's taken far too long. Some countries are calling for a ceasefire, not all. Most of them are just calling for humanitarian aid to be sent in. Look, the Secretary General of the United Nations, he just came out after 12 days of bombing and called for a ceasefire. 12 days. His only role in the UN is to maintain world peace and security. That's it. That's his job. And it took him 12 days to come out for a ceasefire. Is public opinion shifting? I believe in world public opinion. And I think the demonstrations that we've been seeing day after day, weekend after weekend, is really what the world believes. It's not what the White House believes. It's not with what Downing Street believes, but what the world believes. And I believe in people. I believe in people. And I believe that as people, we are going to overcome.
Diane, so do you expect that this ceasefire will come soon? What is the end game of Israel? And
it's their end game. I'll tell you what it is. It's to flatten Gaza. It's to kick out a 1 million minimum Palestinians into Egypt, which is illegal. It's to make it so that Gaza is never livable again. And it's to crush our will to be alive and to survive. And they have not crushed me. They've not crushed Gaza. They will never crush Palestinians.
As a community and people around the world that are protesting against bombing, against genocide, against what the common people can do.
So much, and thank you for the question. One, keep protesting. The Gaza Strip is a place that it's the most generous people you see in your life, and yet there are people who've been living in an open air cage for so many years. They find humor and joy in the simplest of things, and very clever too. So keep protesting, keep going out. Send the message to Gaza that you love them, that you're against this, that you don't believe that this is the way that the world should be. That's the first thing. The second is be demanding better of the media. They've engaged in a process of incredible dehumanization, especially in the United States. It's so hard for me to comprehend how people can view us in this way, or how they can view anybody in this way. And so keep demanding better from the media. But most especially, is keep demanding from the politicians that this stop, and boycott Israel. Israel should not be allowed to be treated as a normal country. This is not normal. Bombing hospitals is not normal. Bombing schools, bombing mosques, bombing houses, bombing refugees, cutting off water, food, electricity, fuel, medicine. That is not normal. And we shouldn't be treating Israel as though it's normal. If anything bright comes of this, is that the world should now wake up and see that this is not the way that this is not what we want to be supporting. We don't want to be like this. They're not a model at all. It's very evil what they're doing. Very evil.
Diane, thank you very much for giving us this time and telling us more about what is happening. We hope that this conflict and ceasefire that this will stop soon. And thank you again for giving us this time. We know how busy you are right now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Vándalos, subversión creativa.